Okay everyone, the last story of my trainer in the Johto region. And I'm glad you all like me making these videos. And I saw your comments that you think my trainer is going to win against Lance, the Johto champion. But after rewatching the games in the anime, I had a better idea. So, without further ado, let's begin part 5. While walking on Route 39 to Route 38, Omega trains his newest team member, Larvitar. Before long, Omega arrived at Ecruteak City. Once there, Omega stopped at Ecruteak's Pokemon Center to heal his team. He then went to Route 42, where he went inside Mount Mortar. While in the mountain, Omega battled some wild Pokemon. After a while, Omega got outside and ended at Route 42. While there, he decided to do some training with Larvitar. 5 days have passed. On the second day, Omega's Larvitar evolved into Pupitar. On the 4th day, Omega met with Ash, Brock, and Misty. While chatting with Ash and his friends, Omega decided to battle Ash with his newly evolved Pupitar, while Brock and Misty are cooking dinner. Omega battled his Pupitar against Ash's Pikachu. But before they finished the battle, Brock told them the meal was ready. The next morning, Omega parted ways with Ash and his friends. Omega then arrived in Mahogany Town, but unfortunately, the gym leader wasn't there. So, Omega went off to do some training. While walking, he saw an out-of-control red Gyarados in the river that leads to Mahogany Town. But before Omega think what was going on, a car stopped near him, and out came Ash, who ran to talk to the red Gyarados. But the red Gyarados attacked Ash with his Hydro Pump, knocking him back. Omega then ran to Ash, who asked him what is going on. But before his question got answered, out from the car came out Misty, Brock, and a red-haired man with a black cape. Omega wanted to know what was going on. Looking to see him far, the red Gyarados attacked him with a Hydro Pump. The red-haired man called out his Dragonite to try and stop the red Gyarados. But before he did that, 3 cars stopped, and out came a man with the Team Rocket logo. Omega now thinking that Team Rocket has something to do with the red Gyarados. The man said to the red-haired man that his name is Lance. The man with the Team Rocket logo told his Team Rocket to go after the red Gyarados. While they were driving by, Ash and his friends go after them. Omega was going to go and help Ash and his friend, but decided to stay and help Lance against the man with the Team Rocket logo. Omega called out his Typhlosion, while the man called out his 2 Pharaohs. Omega and Lance battled against the 2 Pharaohs, each of them taking them out. As soon as that happened, the police, along with Officer Jenny, surrounded the man with the Team Rocket logo and arrested him. Omega and Lance then catch up with the Rage Red Gyarados. Omega and Lance see the Red Gyarados, and Lance then wants to battle the Red Gyarados. Ash and his friends ask Lance to stop his Dragonite attacking the Red Gyarados. Omega, still not knowing what's going on, asks for the short story. Brock and Misty said that Team Rocket was forcing Pokemon evolution by using a wave machine. Omega, now knowing what's going on, decided to help Lance to stop the Red Gyarados. Omega called out his Ampharos and battled with Lance's Dragonite. Lance ordered his Dragonite to use Twister, while Omega used Ampharos' Discharge. Both attacks damaged the red Dragonite. Lance then told his Dragonite to finish it with a Hyper Beam. With that, the red Gyarados was defeated, and then Lance captured the red Gyarados. After that, the Team Rocket grunts were under arrest by Officer Jenny and the police. But before Lance left, he asked Omega if he's the Omega that won the Indigo Conference. After telling Lance that he is Omega, Lance then wishes Omega luck in the Johto League, before flying off on his Dragonite. Ash, Brock, and Misty and Omega then headed to Mahogany Town and rest at the Pokemon Center. When the morning came, all of them wake up at Mahogany Town Pokemon Center and they went to the Pokemon Gym. But once again, the Pokemon Gym leader wasn't there. But before Omega thought about leaving, a lady named Sheila told us that the gym leader, Price, is training at the waterfall. Sheila then told the group that will take them to Price. After walking up the mountain, we see Price is training at the waterfall. But once Ash talked to him, he made a comment about Ash's relationship with his Pikachu, and they told him about it's important to understand the feelings about Pokemon in order to put them into a good battle. Ash and Price argued about this, and then Price decided to prove this point in a battle. They match start, Price sending out his Dugong, and Ash decided to test out his Phanpy. Misty argues while Brock tries to reason with Ash, but Ash says that Phanpy's in good condition, while Omega says nothing, because there's no reason to argue with him. Ash had Flampy use rollout, but Brant told his Dewgong to use headbutt while it was rolling, but the powerful headbutt sent Ash's Flampy flying. Ash apologized to his Flampy as he returned to its Pokeball. As Price called back his Dewgong, he walked away, but Ash wasn't giving up and ran after Price. Sheila then tells him to stop because the caves are dangerous, but Ash didn't listen to her. Omega and the others chased after them. They only found Team Rocket members looking down on the ground arguing. Then Jesse ran to the right and James ran to the left. The Meowson said that Ash along with Pikachu and Price that they fell down the cliff, and once he said that, he ran off. Omega and the others went to the logging cavern to try and find a way to get down. While climbing down, Shuri told Omega, Misty and Brock why Price is so cold, and that is that his Piloswine left him after they lost to a Magmar when he was young. Once Omega and the others found Ash, Pikachu and Price, and surprised that Price found his Piloswine. While talking, Team Rocket came and tried to steal Ash's Pikachu, but Price battled against them with his Piloswine, and Pikachu blasted him off with his Thunderbolt. At the end of the day, Price accepted Ash's challenge for a gym battle tomorrow morning. In the end, Ash won the battle against Price and got the Glacier Badge. The next day, it was Omega's turn, and Ash's friend would like to watch his battle, but Price this time wouldn't use his Piloswine in this battle. So the battle begins with Price's Dewgong against Omega's Ampharos, but since the battlefield was an ice field, it was difficult for Omega's Ampharos to stand. However, Ampharos having the type advantage was able to win against Price's Dewgong. But the next Pokemon Price called out was his Lapras. Once round 2 of the battle begins, Price told his Lapras to use Sing, putting Omega's Ampharos to sleep, and then fired a powerful Ice Beam. Then Omega's Ampharos was frozen. Lanston told his Lapras to end it with a Hydro Pump. Once Ampharos fired a Hydro Pump, breaking Omega's Ampharos out of the ice, however, he was unable to battle. Omega only can use one Pokemon left, decides to call out his Typhlosion. Ash, Brock and Misty were surprised about Omega using a Fire type against a Water and Ice type. Bryce was surprised as well, but Omega tells them that he has a surprise for them. Bryce then told Lapras to use Ice Beam, while Omega told his Typhlosion to use Flamethrower. The two moves clash, making an explosion. Omega then tells Typhlosion to charge inside the smoke. At the other side, Price and his Lapras were surprised. Omega then tells Typhlosion to use Thunder Punch. And with that, Typhlosion released a powerful Thunder Punch, surprising Ash, Brock, Misty, and Price. But Omega wasn't done yet. He told Typhlosion to use Thunder Punch one more time, and with that last Thunder Punch, was able to take down Price's Lapras. In the end, Omega won the battle against Price and received the Glacier Badge. But before Omega leaves to heal his team, Price was surprised about Omega's Typhlosion knowing Thunder Punch. Once Omega healed his team, he said farewell to Ash and his friends, and they left on their own ways. Omega traveled through the ice path and soon arrived in Blackthorn City. But once again, the gym leader wasn't there. So Omega decides to heal his team and chill in the Pokemon Center. Whilst chilling, he overheard some trainers talking about a powerful Skarmory. After getting more information about the Skarmory, he decided to go over there and capture it for itself. After walking around on Route 45, he wasn't able to find the Skarmory, but he then suddenly meet up with none other than Gary Oak. Omega asked Gary Oak what he's doing, and he said he's looking for a metal coat, which will help him evolve the Cypher he has catched. Omega asked him why he needs a metal coat, saying that it will evolve his Cypher into a Scizor. Gary Oak then asks what he's doing here. Omega then tells him that he's looking for a powerful Skarmory that lurks around this route. Gary Oak said he tried to catch the powerful Skarmory, but it didn't give up. But as soon as he said that, the powerful Skarmory swooped down and was about to attack Omega and Gary. Omega then called out his Typhlosion. Omega's Typhlosion battled against the powerful Skarmory, but the powerful Skarmory was lucky enough to dodge some of Typhlosion's fire attacks, but luckily, it managed to hit a few times. Omega then started throwing the Pokeballs at it. He missed it a few times, however, he managed to catch the Skarmory inside the Pokeball, but it wouldn't stay in the Pokeball for long, because the power of Skarmory still have enough strength to break out its Pokeball. Omega then tried a second time, but it failed. And then the third time, failed again. Gyarados then said Omega that it looks like this Skarmory cannot be catched. But Omega didn't give up and keep on battling Skarmory. Once it hit another Flamethrower, he threw another Pokeball at it, and finally, Omega has captured the Skarmory. Gyarados was surprised about Omega catching the Skarmory. Omega tells Gyarados that he didn't give up. Gyarados then smiled and wished Omega luck with the Skarmory. As soon as Gyarados walked his own way, now that Omega has a Skarmory, he decides to bond with it. After opening his Pokédex, he decides to switch out Quagsire for Skarmory. That night, Skarmory didn't like Omega as much as his team, but as soon as he had a good meal with the Skarmory, he started to like Omega. The next morning, they decided to see what Skarmory can do in battle against Omega's Heracross. Omega's Skarmory showed off all of his moves and defeated Omega's Heracross very easily. Omega then decided to use Skarmory against the last gym leader. After 3 days of training, Omega decided to head back, heal his team, and go to Blackthorn City Gym. Once there, Omega meets with the Blackthorn City Gym leader, Claire. The battle begins just like in the anime with Claire's Kindra, and Omega called out his newest Pokemon, Skarmory. However, Claire's Kindra has the advantage, with the battlefield being both land and water. Claire's Kindra starts the battle off by taking out Omega's Skarmory with a Hydro Pump attack. Skarmory dodges the attack and powers up with his speed with agility. Claire's Kindra then used Swift, and to counter the attack, Omega tells his Skarmory to use Swift as well. Both Swift attacks clashed each other. Omega then tells the Skarmory to use agility to double up its speed again. Claire, not wanting Skarmory to get even faster, told his Kindra to use Hyper Beam. But Omega then tells his Skarmory to dive down near the water and attacks it with the Steel Wing, knocking Claire's Kindra out of the water. Omega then tells his Skarmory to use Swift, giving Kindra more damage. After that, Claire then told Kindra to use Hydro Pump on the ground, sending Kindra flying and behind Skarmory, shocking both Omega and Skarmory. Claire then tells Kindra to use Swift from behind, giving heavy damage to Skarmory. Omega then tells Skarmory to use Steel Wing, and by doing that, it was able to knock down Claire's Kindra, sending it back to the ground. But Omega didn't stop there. Omega tells the Skarmory to use Drill Peck, and with that, Claire's Kindra was unable to battle. Claire then called back her Kindra and called out her Gyarados. Omega, knowing Gyarados' type, called back his Skarmory and called out his Ampharos. Even though Claire's Gyarados has Dragon Breath, it's still super effective against electric attacks. At the end, Claire's Gyarados was defeated by Omega's Ampharos. Claire can call back her Gyarados and called out her last and powerful Pokemon, Dragonair. Omega's Ampharos did land a single beam, as well as clashing Claire's Dragonair's Iron Tail with Ampharos' Iron Tail. But in the end, Claire's Dragonair was able to beat Omega's Ampharos. Omega calls back Ampharos and called out Skarmory. However, even with Skarmory's increased speed, wasn't able to dodge Dragonair's Dragon Rage or Dragonair using the water to make a water tornado using her Twister attack. At the end of this battle, Dragonair ends it with a Hyper Beam, defeating Omega's Skarmory. Omega calls back his Skarmory and called out his last Pokemon, Typhlosion. Omega then tells Typhlosion to use Flamethrower attack, but Dragonair deflects the Flamethrower with Safeguard. Omega then decided to come up with a brilliant idea, telling his Typhlosion to use Thunder Punch in the water. Typhlosion strikes the water with a Thunder Punch, shocking Claire's Dragonair. Claire then tells the Dragonair to dive into the water. Omega decides to not give Dragonair any more defense, tells his Typhlosion to use Flamethrower at the water. The Flamethrower causing the water to evaporate, turning it into steam. Leaving no single drop of water, Dragonair had no place to hide. Omega then tells the Typhlosion to jump into the empty water area where Dragonair is. Claire then tells her Dragonair to use Iron Tail, but Omega tells the Typhlosion to catch the Iron Tail. And lucky enough, Omega's Typhlosion catches Dragonair's Iron Tail with his claws. Omega then tells the Typhlosion to use Lava Plume, and lucky for Omega, Dragonair has finally got burnt. Omega then tells Typhlosion to quickly use Thunder Punch. With the burnt damage and a powerful Thunder Punch, Omega then tells Typhlosion to end it with Flamethrower. However, Claire then quickly tells the Dragonair to counter it with Hyper Beam. The two moves clash, but in the second Claire's Dragonair got hit by the burn damage, giving the opening to Omega's Typhlosion, and with one final push, Claire's Dragonair was defeated by battle. Omega then won the battle and received the Rising badge. Now that Omega has all 8 badges, he was able to enter the Johto League, but it's also known as the Johto League Silver Conference. Claire then tells Omega that the Silver Conference will be taken in 3 months in Silver Town at Mount Silver. However, Omega needs to be registered in the Silver Conference, so Omega goes back to Newbot Town, so he can be registered for the Silver Conference. So, Omega healed his team, then head back to Newbot Town. Once arrived there, he registered for the Silver Conference. However, since Omega has enough time, he decides to do some training before the Silver Conference. 1 month has passed, and Omega's Pupitar has become even stronger and learned Dark Pulse. Once Omega found a Pokemon Center, he decided to switch his Heracross for Cypher. Whilst training, Omega's Pupitar finally evolved into Tyranitar. Once he finally evolved, he learned some new moves, and his new body was unstoppable. Another month has passed, and Omega's Johto team has improved a lot. But he only has 1 month until the Silver Conference. On the first of the 3rd month, while training, he decided not to train only his Johto team, but also his Kanto team. So, on the first week, he received from Professor Oak's laboratory, Nidoking, Victreebel, Gengar, Hitmonchan, Rhydon, and Seadra. On the second week, he returned back Victreebel, Gengar, and Hitmonchan for Gyarados, Jolteon, and Aerodactyl. Then, on the 3rd and final week, he decides to train both his Johto team and his Kanto team. So he got Rhyhorn and Tyranitar to train each other, Aerodactyl with Skarmory, and Typhlosion with Gengar. Days went by, and only 2 days left, Omega healed his team, decided to start walking to Mount Silver into Silver Town. While headed there, he meets up once again with Ash, Brock, and Misty. Then they all stay in the Pokemon Center in Silver Town. But before Omega went to sleep, he decided to switch out his team ready for tomorrow. In his team, Omega has Typhlosion, Tyranitar, Ampharos, Gengar, Rhydon, and Gyarados. When morning came, Omega and Ash meet up with Gary, who was also in the Silver Conference. After saying goodbye to Gary Oak, Omega, Ash, and Brock and Misty meets up with Mr. Goodman. After chatting with Mr. Goodman, they headed to their dormitories. Once Omega headed to his own room, and then went to the battle arena, where trainers must enter to the preliminaries. Omega's first battle is none other than Axel from Newbot Town. Axel is happy to see Omega because now his Pokemon is much stronger. The battle begins with Axel going first and calling out his Houndoom. Omega was going to call out his Tyranitar, but instead called out his Typhlosion. The battle was intense, with both fire Pokemon battling it out, but Axel's Houndoom knew 2 other moves, Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball. But Omega's Typhlosion also knows another move known as Thunder Punch. And Omega decides to end the battle with Typhlosion's new move, Earthquake. With the battle over, Omega only has 2 more battles left before entering into the Silver Conference. When Omega won the second battle with his Rhydon, Omega's last trainer that he must face is Venexia. Venexia was happy to see Omega. Now she can battle against him with her stronger Pokemon, and that being her fully evolved Feraligatr. But since she called out a Feraligatr, Omega called out his Ampharos. And since with the type advantage, Omega was able to win the battle with ease. Venexia hoped to battle against Omega again. After winning those battles, he was now in the semi-finals. Now the Silver Conference is where 3 trainers are split into 16 of 3. Each group in a block participate in a round-robin free tournament. In a 3-on-3 match, 3 points are awarded to the winner, 1 point for every draw, and 0 points to anybody who loses. The trainer with the most points are moved to the finals. And in the group that Omega's in is Jimmy from Newbot Town and Menina, who's also from Newbot Town. But before entering, Omega must register his team for each match before the match begins. Omega registers his Skarmory, Quagsire, and Espeon. The next day, Omega's first battle is none other than Jimmy. Now all we know about Jimmy is that he has a Typhlosion and a Beedrill. However, his counterpart Ethan in Zekrom, Master of Illusion, have a Donphan. So, I'm gonna say Jimmy has a Donphan, that way he has a third Pokemon in this segment. So, the first battle begins with Jimmy calling out his Beedrill and Omega calling out his Skarmory. Whilst Jimmy Beedrill was impressive, Omega trains Skarmory to improve its speed. With Skarmory being faster than Jimmy's Beedrill, as well as bug type attacks doing half the damage to steel types, Skarmory was able to win against the battle. Jimmy called back his Beedrill and called out his Typhlosion. Omega then called back his Skarmory and then called out his Quagsire. Omega knew that Jimmy was gonna choose Typhlosion, but he's gonna be surprised about what it can do. Omega tells Quagsire to use Water Gun. Jimmy's Typhlosion charges in without staining any damage. Jimmy then tells Typhlosion to use Quick Attack, knocking Quagsire off his feet. Omega then quickly called back his Quagsire back into his Pokeball. Omega then got worried. Quagsire's attack wasn't able to deal any damage even though it's a water type, and Skarmory might lose the battle against Typhlosion. So, the only Pokemon he left to use is Espeon. When Omega called out his Espeon, Jimmy said that he was confident to win since his Typhlosion was very strong. But Omega smiled and told his Espeon to use Attract. Now that Jimmy's Typhlosion has fallen in love with Espeon's Attract, Omega has the advantage and tells his Espeon to use Swift. It hits, and then tells the Espeon to use Psybeam, finally ending it with a Psychic attack. With that, Jimmy's Typhlosion was unable to battle, and his last Pokemon is of course Donphan. So, once Omega calls back his Espeon and calls out his Quagsire, it was a no-brainer. Quagsire was able to beat Jimmy's Donphan. Now that Omega has beaten Jimmy, he received 3 points. All he needs to now is win against Marina. After healing his team, Omega received his next team against Marina, and his Pokemon team is Heracross, Persian, and Ampharos. The next day is a battle against Marina against Omega. Marina went first and called out her Wigglytuff, also known as Pink, and Omega called out his Heracross. When the battle started, Marina tells his Wigglytuff to use Headbutt, dealing damage to Heracross. To counter the attack, Omega tells Heracross to use Brick Break, dealing some damage to Wigglytuff. Marina tells her Wigglytuff to use Sting, putting Heracross fast asleep. Marina then tells her Wigglytuff to use Double Slap against a sleeping Heracross. Omega then counters Marina's Wigglytuff attack by telling his Heracross to use Sleep Talk. As Omega said that, his sleeping Heracross used Mega Horn against Marina's Wigglytuff, surprising her. She then tells her Wigglytuff to raise her defense by using Defense Curl. Omega's sleeping Heracross then starts to use Sleep Talk again, and this time he uses Brick Break. And even though Wigglytuff raised her defense, Brick Break was able to do some damage to Marina's Wigglytuff, and with that, he was able to win. Suddenly, Omega's Heracross started to wake up, trying to figure out what just happened. Marina called back her Wigglytuff and called out a Misdreavus, also known as Little Miss. Omega called back his Heracross and called out his Persian. With Persian knowing Flames Attack, Bites, along with its newest move, Shadow Ball, was able to defeat Marina's Misdreavus. With only one Pokemon left, Marina calls out a final Pokemon, Feraligatr, but also known as Wani. Omega called back his Persian and called out none other than Ampharos. And just like Phoenix's Feraligatr, Omega was able to beat Marina's Feraligatr. Now Omega's in the finals alongside Ash and Gary. Unfortunately, Omega's in the top row where he must battle against the trainers before versing either Ash or Gary. But we all know that's not gonna happen. Now, Omega's next trainer he must fight is none other than Koji. Now, all we know that Koji has a Sandslash, so I'm just gonna say Omega beats his Sandslash with his Hitmonchan. For the next battle, I would say Omega was struggling for his opponent, but he managed to enter the finals. Now Omega's last opponent is none other than John Dickinson. But before battling John, Omega went to Ash and his friends and checked on Harrison. Once knowing his Blaziken is okay, he tells Ash and Omega about the Hoenn region and Professor Birch. After helping a bunch of Mischievous alongside Gary Oak, who heard the scream, he helped us out and told everyone that he's gonna become a Pokemon researcher. Okay, at first I wanted to let John be the winner of the Silver Conference, even though Omega trained his team for 3 months. Now, all we know about John's Pokemon that he has a Rhyhorn, a Rapidash, but in my version, I'm gonna give him a Tyranitar, a Raichu, a Poliwrath, and a Crobat. But I must say this, being second place for my trainer is okay. Besides, he already won the Indigo Plateau Conference is enough. Anyway, after leaving Silvertown, as well as taking care of Team Rocket's robot, Omega went with Ash and his friends before parting way with Gary and Harrison. And just like in the anime, Misty went back to Cerulean City to become the new gym leader, and Brock went back home to check on his family. So, the 4 parted ways. Once Omega arrived back home to see his family, he went to Professor Oak's laboratory to check on his Pokemon. After meeting Professor Oak, as well as Tracy, Omega decided to go on another venture in the Hoenn region. After telling his family and getting permission, as well as getting a ticket for the Hoenn region and the new Pokedex, he was about ready to go. But there was only one thing left. Since he wanted to start a new team in the Hoenn region, he decided to just take one of his new Pokemon. And that new Pokemon he has on his team is none other than Skarmory. At first, Skarmory was surprised that Omega's taking him on his journey in the Hoenn region, but she was happy that she's coming. Omega then set off in the Hoenn region on a different ferry than Ash and his Pikachu. Well, my trainer is finally done with Johto, and now his next journey is in Hoenn. But before I end this video, I know I'm going to get a lot of questions, so let's begin. First off, why didn't your trainer win the Johto League? So, I know my trainer is very strong, and of course he could win the Johto League, but of course he needs a motivation to go to another journey. However, again, I didn't want my character to win, and that was it. I wanted him to go on another journey, just like Ash. As for how, that's for me to know and you to find out. Now, of course, next question is, how did Omega's Typhlosion know Thunder Punch and Earthquake? Well, of course, after training with Ampharos, Typhlosion has learned Thunder Punch through Ampharos. As for Earthquake, he learned that from Tyranitar. Now the next question is, why pick Skarmory instead of Typhlosion as your Pokemon going to the Hoenn region? As you all probably know, the Hoenn region doesn't have a lot of best flyers, and besides, Omega didn't have Skarmory for long, so he would like to have more bonding time with Skarmory. And what better way is bringing in Skarmory into another region? And speaking of Skarmory, let's talk about her moves. Of course, Skarmory's moves is of course Steel Wing, Agility, Drill Peck, and Swift. After 3 months of training, Omega Skarmory forgot Drill Peck and learned Sky Attack. Last but definitely not least is Larvitar. When it evolved into Pupitar, he forgot Bite and learned Dark Pulse. And when it finally evolved into Tyranitar, it forgot Sandstorm to learn Earthquake, which enabled Typhlosion to learn Earthquake, and Thrash for Crunch. Now, just like in the rest of my videos, if you have any questions, comment them down below and I'll answer them. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is Omega Emperor. Stay awesome.